Alright guys, I'm going to show you a really quick, easy way to make kind of this cutout paper style for a design. I'm going to show you the finished product, which is this. Take a look at my layers right here. This is kind of working backwards. So this is the last step I did, was this little paper texture on top. I'm going to turn that off. Second to last step was to cut out the actual dog to look like a piece of paper. I started with just a regular picture like this, and I applied a color overlay effect to make it kind of blue. And then I made a copy of that layer, and I made a layer mask. You can see this is what it looked like before the layer mask. I made a layer mask where I added these little cutouts, like it's like almost like it's ripping away, and we added some effects to make it look like it's above that blue layer. So this is kind of floating above this, and then we cut out the dog to make the dog look like it's floating above everything else with the same little drop shadow effects. Okay. So if that all makes sense to you, go ahead and try it. But for the rest of us, I'm going to go ahead and make a brand new file and just show you step by step how I did this whole thing. First step is to make a new canvas. So I'm going to go to File, New. If you ever don't know what size canvas to make, just make it 8.5 by 11, so 8.5 inches wide and 11 inches tall. That's the size of a regular sheet of paper, by the way, 8.5 by 11. So I'm going to hit Create. That's my new canvas. And I'm going to bring in the picture that I want to use, which is this picture of my dog. Alright, and I'm going to try to have it fill the whole canvas, even if it's a little bit big, that's okay. And then if you see the X like this, you have to hit Enter, or Return. And then I have that layer, which is fine. I'm going to duplicate that layer because I know I'm going to need it twice. So now I have two layers that are exactly the same, and that's fine. I'm going to take this bottom layer though, and I'm going to leave this top layer off. I'm going to take this bottom layer and I'm going to add an effect, a color overlay. And I add just kind of this blue color just because of Panther colors, but you could add whatever color. I'll try yellow for this one. And I want to still be able to see the picture but have a color over the top. And I'm going to hit OK. I'm going to hit OK, and now this picture is yellow. So that's fine. That one's done. Now I'm going to go to the layer above it and turn that on. So what I want is for parts of this layer to be see-through, like almost like they're scratching away, and then we're going to see the yellow piece underneath. So I'm going to add a layer mask with my little layer mask button down here, this white square with this black circle in it. And I want very specific parts to look like they're scratching. So the way we're going to do that is with our lasso tool, which is right here. If you don't see the lasso tool, right click. It might be behind one of these other tools. And if you right click, you should be able to find the lasso tool. And I'm just going to make some just random scratches. So I'm going to click and hold down and just kind of just really randomly make jagged lines all the way. I'll even make it through the dog, and then go back up and always meet the same point where you started. And once you have these dancing ants, the cool thing is I can just click on my layer mask, this white box here, and I can paint in there with my brush, and the paint won't leave these little dotted line areas. So if I paint the color black, it's going to make it see-through so where I can see the yellow underneath. So I got one scratch there. I'm going to take my lasso tool, add another scratch, maybe here, like maybe like this part of the picture is ripped away, and I want this to be jagged, so it doesn't have to be perfect. Go back up, meet where I started, go to my brush, make sure I'm painting in my layer mask, and when I paint black, it should turn yellow, which is perfect. Alright, so now I'm going to hit Command D on my keyboard to get rid of those dotted lines, and now I have basically a yellow picture with the real picture showing above it. But I want it to look like this picture is floating above this one. So I'm going to go to my effects, and I'm going to add a drop shadow for sure. This is where it gets a little tricky because I don't know exactly which size to tell you this drop shadow to be. Even mine, this looks a little bit way too big for me. So the distance, I'm going to make it smaller. And I just want it to be subtle, like just subtly popping up. I'll even make the opacity a little bit lower, and I'll play with these settings, and this looks fine enough to me where it's popping out a little bit but not too much if you zoom in. And then the last one I'm going to add is something called bevel and emboss, just to make it look a little bit 3D, and this is really subtle also, but I'll go really big here, and you can see it kind of cuts out an edge here. It makes it look 3D. I want it to be real small, like just enough to give it a highlight, but not to do anything crazy. Alright, so that'll make it look like one picture is in front of the other one. Cool? So we're most of the way there. The last step is to take my lasso tool and just really jaggedly cut around my subject. And remember, when you're cutting a piece of paper, like when you're tearing it with your fingers, it's never perfect. So don't try to make this perfectly around your subject. Just kind of randomly go and make it look jagged, because we want it to look like a piece of paper was torn with somebody's fingers. So if I click that, I need to make sure I click on the dog because I want the dog to be copied. So I click her there. I come here and I right click and I do layer via copy. So now I have a new layer that's just my dog, and the cool thing is it should have the same exact effects as the other layer. So if I zoom all the way out, it looks like she's a little bit on top of everything else. Alright, so that's almost like 3 pieces of paper stacked on top of each other. Cool. The last step is to go online and find a piece of like crumpled paper. Dark is not good. If you can find like a white piece of crumpled paper like this is the best. Take this picture and save it. If you use the website that I showed you guys before, Pexels, PEXELS.com, if you just type in paper, you get a lot of paper texture like this. You can pick whichever one you want. I took one, I saved it to my desktop, and I'll do it again just so you guys can see it. So if say I like this one, click on it. If you hit free download, it should download it to the bottom of your browser right here, and then you can just take it, put it on your desktop, or take it straight to Photoshop like this. Cover your whole canvas. Hit enter. When you see the X, hit enter, and then just blend it down. So if it's white, multiply works well, and then I lower my opacity. Alright, so it gives a paper texture, it's got pieces cutting out, and this is finished for today.